Sitting down to study should be simple, but somehow, the moment you open your notes, everything else becomes more interesting. Your phone suddenly feels impossible to ignore. You start thinking maybe you should get coffee first, maybe clean your desk, maybe rethink your entire career path. If that sounds familiar, you're not lazy. You're just using a system that works against your brain. Most students don't struggle because they're incapable. They struggle because they study in ways that feel productive, but don't actually lead to real learning. So if you want to learn faster, remember more, and spend less time staring at the same page, this video is for you. Here are 6 study strategies that can make learning feel dramatically easier without burning you out. 1. Shrink the task so your brain stops resisting. One of the biggest reasons people procrastinate is because the task feels too big. If you tell yourself, I need to study for 3 hours, your brain hears one thing: pain. And that's when the delay starts. You check one message, then one video, then suddenly 45 minutes are gone. This happens because of something called Parkinson's law. Work expands to fill the time you give it. So instead of planning huge study blocks, make the goal smaller. Tell yourself, I'm only going to study for 20 minutes. That feels manageable. Your brain stops fighting it because starting no longer feels overwhelming. And here's the interesting part. Once you begin, continuing is usually much easier than starting. A simple upgrade to this method is to define exactly what that 20 minutes is for. Not study chemistry. Instead, review ionic bonding and answer 5 recall questions. Specific tasks reduce friction, and less friction means faster action. 2. Stop trying to memorize everything. A lot of students waste time because they treat every page like it matters equally. It doesn't. Some topics carry far more weight than others. Some ideas show up again and again in exams. Others barely matter. That's where the 80-20 rule becomes powerful. In many cases, around 20% of what you study produces 80% of your results. So instead of trying to master every tiny detail first, identify the high-value material. Ask yourself, what topics come up most often? What does my teacher emphasize? What do past exam papers keep repeating? Where am I still weak? This instantly helps you focus on what will actually move your grade. A smart way to do this is to begin with a practice test before deep studying. That gives you a map. You stop guessing what matters and start seeing it clearly. Studying more is not always the answer. Studying the right things usually is. 3. Use teaching as a shortcut to understanding. There's a big difference between recognizing information and truly understanding it. A lot of people think they know something because it looks familiar on the page. But familiarity is not mastery. A better test is this. Can you explain it in simple language? Take any topic you're learning and pretend you have to teach it to someone with no background at all. A child, a friend, even an imaginary audience. No technical language, no hiding behind textbook wording. Just a clear, simple explanation. The moment you get stuck, you've found the gap. That's exactly where your review should go. This works because teaching forces your brain to organize information, simplify it, and connect it logically. In other words, it turns passive exposure into real understanding. And when you understand something deeply, memorizing becomes much easier. 4. Replace rereading with retrieval. If you want one of the most effective study upgrades possible, this is it. Stop rereading your notes over and over. Rereading feels productive because your notes become familiar. But familiarity can trick you into thinking you've learned something when you haven't actually stored it. Instead, force your brain to retrieve the information. Close the book. Look away from your notes. Then try to recall the key ideas from memory. Write them down. Say them out loud. Sketch them if that helps. This is called active recall, and it works because memory gets stronger when you practice pulling information out, not just taking it in. One of the best ways to do this is with a simple brain dump. Read a section, close everything, then write down everything you remember without checking. After that, compare your answer to the source and fill in the gaps. That gap is where learning happens. Testing yourself is not just a way to measure learning, it is learning. 5. Create urgency with a timer. Have you ever noticed how focused you become right before a deadline? That's not random. Urgency sharpens attention. The good news is, you don't have to wait until the night before an exam to use it. You can create that same effect with short, timed study sessions. Set a timer for 30 minutes. During that time, work with full concentration on one task only. Then take a 5-minute break. Stand up, walk around, stretch, get water. Let your mind reset. Then repeat. This works for 2 reasons. First, shorter sessions are easier to sustain, so you avoid mental burnout. Second, your brain focuses better when it knows rest is coming soon. It also prevents a very common trap: fake studying. That's when you sit with your notes for an hour, but spend most of that time distracted, drifting, or reading without thinking. Timed sessions create boundaries, and boundaries improve intensity. 6. Protect the part of learning most people ignore. You can use every study method in the world, but if your brain never gets the chance to store what you learned, much of that effort disappears. That's why the final step is not really about studying harder. It's about recovery. Your brain does not fully lock in information while you're cramming at your desk. A huge part of memory consolidation happens later, especially during sleep. So if you cut sleep to study more, you often end up remembering less. Getting a solid 7 to 8 hours of sleep gives your brain the chance to organize and store what you learned. And sleep is only part of it. Physical movement matters too. You don't need intense workouts. Even a short walk can improve focus, energy, and memory. If your brain is tired, overloaded, and under-recovered, studying gets slower no matter how motivated you are. But when sleep and movement are in place, learning becomes noticeably easier. This is the closest thing to a real shortcut. Final recap. If you want to study faster without sacrificing results, remember this. Make the task small so it's easy to start. Focus on the few topics that matter most. Teach what you learn in simple language. Test your memory instead of rereading. Use timers to create focus. And protect your sleep and energy so your brain can actually retain what you study. You do not need more hours. You need a better system. Try even one of these strategies today, and you'll feel the difference almost immediately. Because studying smart is not about doing less work. It's about making every minute count.